Well, hello, everyone. I am Dr. Olenda Johnson, and I am Professor of Strategic Leadership and Leader Development at the United States Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. A few months ago, I was invited by the United States Navy Commander of Naval Surface Forces, PAC Fleet, Admiral Kitchener, also known as SWOBOS in the Navy, to speak at his second annual Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion DEI Summit. It was a great event. And my contribution to that conversation, which has since been described as the superhero TED Talk, was apparently very well received. And we received a number of inquiries and requests for video of that presentation. But alas, we didn't in the moment think about recording that session. So, in lieu of that possibility, what we've decided to do is to record this video to somewhat recreate that presentation the best that we can. And though I'm not on stage, it is my hope that this video will suffice and still perhaps serve as a source of guidance and inspiration. Now, before I continue, let me first provide some context and sort of set the stage for the event and my remarks. And also let me give a quick shout out to Commanders Dominique DJ Jackson and Doug Jones, who coordinated my participation in the summit. At this event, there were approximately 350 attendees, mostly from the Navy surface warfare community, and it included everyone from the Navy's top senior leadership all the way through deck plate sailors. The theme for the summit was connectedness, with a specific emphasis on inclusion as a warfighting imperative. The title of my presentation is Use Your Superpowers for Good. So with that, here goes. Enjoy. So let's talk about superheroes. And I should forewarn you that I am very much a storyteller, so please bear with me as I share a story or two. And I ask that you just hang in there. I promise I am hopefully going to take us somewhere. Now, I grew up with three older brothers who were huge superhero comic book fans. They would use all of their allowance money to buy stacks and stacks of comic books that can tell you anything and everything about every superhero on the planet and indeed the universe. I remember as a little sister just getting schooled on how Bruce Banner became the Incredible Hulk and all the things that Spider-Man could do with his amazing web and the many evil forces from which the world needed saving. But that's pretty much where my superhero knowledge ended. Until about 5 years ago, when I saw the very first Black Panther superhero movie, Wakanda Forever. I love that flick. But it was also then that I realized for the very first time that there is this entire world of Marvel superheroes and of Marvel fandom and this thing called the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I genuinely didn't know it existed. And for the Marvel Universe fans out there, I know that sounds strange and that it's hard to believe, but it is true. But you will appreciate this, though. I went to see the first Black Panther movie with some very good friends, more like family, really, which included their teenage daughters and their 8-year-old son, who you might imagine was just geeking out about this film. Now, notably, we were in New Zealand, of all places, which, as it turns out, was where the film had its world premiere before it was released in the United States. So we were there on the very first opening day. How cool is that? And I'm telling you, it was just crazy. There were people dressed as Marvel superheroes, some dressed as the villains. There are all these special displays in the theater's lobby. And I swear I heard people communicating in some super galactic language. It was all pretty amazing. But the best part, of course, was getting to see the Black Panther in all of his superhero glory. And as many of you know, that film did not disappoint. It was a visually stunning work of artistic storytelling. And of course, in the end, the superhero wins. Now, interestingly, there was something that happened in the theater at the end of watching the movie that revealed just how unfamiliar I was with the Marvel world. And if you can visualize, we are in this giant IMAX theater. The movie ends, the credits begin to roll. Generally that's the cue to start gathering your things, clean up around yourself, and to get up to leave, which I did. I stood up. Now, all the Marvel fans out there, you know exactly where this is going. So I am standing there and I look around and I realize that I am literally the only person standing. Everyone else in this giant theater, except maybe 2 or 3 other very confused people like me, everybody else is just sitting in their seats, eyes glued to the screen. So I slink back into my seat and I am looking around thinking, man, these folks are really into the credits. And then it happens. Something that all of the Marvel fans in the theater anticipated, because this was their world. They knew what was coming. In the midst of the scrolling credits, a whole nother scene appeared on the screen. It was this big reveal. The scene plays out. Character comes out of a tent. Everyone in the audience completely loses their mind and they all yell at the same time, Bucky! I had no idea what was going on. I was totally clueless. So I did the smart thing. I leaned over and I asked my 8-year-old friend, dude, what's going on? Explain to me what I just missed. He very excitedly says, well, Miss Olenda, it's because of the ending of the Civil War. Now, in my mind, the Civil War means the North versus South in Gettysburg. That wasn't it. No, Miss Olenda, he says, the movie, Captain America Civil War. Bucky, he's a Winter Soldier. He's his best friend. He gets killed in the end. You're going to have to go all the way back. Haven't you at least seen the Avengers? Thor, Black Widow, Iron Man, Hulk? And he gives me that look that says, oh my goodness, how can you not know this? You know that look. He throws up his hands and he walks off in disbelief. But clearly, there is this whole world, this whole reality, this whole group of people that I know very little about. You see, my world, my movie world is totally different. British historical dramas. That's my jam. Bridgerton, anyone? Thank you. Duke, Daphne, Lady Whistledown, All Is Fair in Love and War. Just saying. And isn't this true for most of us? We exist in our own worlds. We're shaped by our own experiences, and we know what we know. At the same time, others exist in their worlds, are shaped by their set of experiences, and possess their range of knowledge. And sometimes we can find ourselves in the same state of cluelessness that I experienced when we are presented with aspects of another world that may be new to us. Yeah, here's the thing. Even though we may come from different worlds, there's still all of this space in between to connect our unique realities. Our connectedness is a matter of 2 things. One, the efforts that we make to share our worlds, to disclose our realities to others. And two, the extent to which we value worlds that may differ from our own, respecting and indeed even celebrating that we're not all the same. Our job then as shipmates is simply to make it possible for each of us to bring our worlds into the spaces that we collectively occupy, to make it so that Marvel fans and fans of Bridgerton can thrive in the same space and contribute to the same conversation. Now, in order to make this work, and this is key, we must do so without judgment or limitations. In other words, rather than trying to make unfamiliar worlds fit into our box, which makes sense because that's where we're most comfortable, we have to take that lid off so that we can appreciate those worlds just as they are. So we might ask ourselves, am I just trying to bring people into my world, into my way of thinking, my way of doing, my way of being? Or am I making my world bigger by including the many views, experiences, and realities that people bring into our collective spaces? In my case, I decided to expand my world to be inclusive of the Marvel Universe. So clearly I had some homework to do. So a few months after seeing the Black Panther movie, I happened to catch a rebroadcast of the original Avengers movie on one of the cable channels, TNT or FX, one of those. I since learned that that movie first came out back in 2012, which I'm guessing makes it a classic among Marvel fans. But in either regard, this was the movie that my 8-year-old buddy told me that I had to watch if I was ever going to understand anything about Marvel superheroes. And sure enough, I started watching that movie, and before I knew it, I was completely drawn in. Who knew that a diehard Bridgerton fan could find enjoyment in all things Marvel? Now, for those who may be unfamiliar with the Avengers movie, like all superhero stories, it is a fight against good and evil. And on one side, you have the bad guy. He is an evil demigod who sets out to destroy the earth and all of her people. And on the other side, the good side, there's this defense agency with the acronym SHIELD, SHIELD, which stands for the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement Logistics Division Agency. Whew, I got that. Basically, it's a combination of the Department of Homeland Defense and the Homeland Security and the Department of Defense to include all of the naval warfare communities. Right? Their mission? To protect and defend against any enemies and threats. Sound familiar? Now, the director of the agency, Nick Fury, calls upon 6 individual superheroes, each with special gift and a unique superpower, to defeat this enemy. There's Tony Stark, who's the billionaire inventor who becomes Iron Man through his AI-controlled suit of armor. Always says suit up. There's Captain America, who is a resurrected World War II soldier with superhuman speed and this indestructible shield. There's once again Dr. Bruce Banner, who is an expert scientist and becomes the Beastly Hulk. Oh, and excuse me, there's Black Widow. She is a trained and lethal assassin with a very specific set of fighting skills. There is Hawkeye, who is an expert archer and marksman who has these weaponized arrows, also trained in military combat. And finally, there is Thor, the god of thunder, who has this mighty hammer that he powers by calling down the lightning, and he combines this with supernatural strength. These are the Avengers, a superhero response team. Now, during a pivotal scene in the movie, the director, Nick Fury, describes the reasons why he sought out each of these individual superheroes. And he says this: the idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people to see if they could become something more, to see if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could. If I could write a mission statement for inclusion in the United States Navy, this would be it. To bring together a group of remarkable people to be something more, to work together to fight the battles that we civilians never could. This is you. You are the superheroes. Everyone listening in is remarkable in some way. For some, it is a special set of skills. For others, it's a specialized knowledge. And still for others, it is a unique perspective, often born of our experiences in our own worlds. So we should ask ourselves, what makes us and our shipmates remarkable? What unique powers do we each bring to the team? And significantly, what are we doing to connect our special gifts so that we become something more? Now, importantly, our superpowers can come from many different places. They might be intrinsic. In other words, we're just born with them like Thor. We might have to train and work hard like the Black Widow to develop our specialized knowledge and our very special skills. Or our unique abilities may simply come from our lived experiences. And truthfully, most of us likely have superpowers that we don't even realize that we have. Indeed, in my case, it took me a while to discover one of my superpowers. And yes, we can have more than one. Certainly, I've been blessed with specific talents and particular passions, with teaching being at the top of that list. And I also have multiple characteristics and identities that define who I am as a person of color, as a woman, as a person of faith. But it was one of my previous leaders who pointed out that I have this unique ability to ask certain questions that help people think. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much of a superpower, but in the work that I do, particularly with our Navy senior leaders, it has turned out to be an incredibly important skill. You see, as I am listening to a discussion or a briefing, for example, I tend to hear what other people sometimes can't hear for themselves. And it's usually just because they're too close to it. But my mind automatically recognizes interdependencies and complexities, and I can clearly see gaps. And my brain tends to home in on possibilities that may not be immediately evident. And I often translate this into questions that help leaders stop, reflect, and think. Now, my previous leader says that in meetings, I'm always the one that asks the questions that no one else thinks to ask. Now, I'm going to be honest, sometimes that doesn't go over so well, just keeping it real. But for the most part, this superpower has resulted in helping leaders better understand problems and ultimately leading to better decisions, better actions, and better outcomes. So in this regard, I have used my superpowers for good. So ask yourself, what superpowers might you have that may not yet be fully revealed? What unique abilities might reflect experiences in your world? What special talents might you have that can help you, your team, your unit, your organization be better? For example, maybe you regularly attended science camp as a kid, or participated in STEM programs, or earned degrees in computer or scientific disciplines. This has given you an unbound vision for what can be technologically and scientifically achieved. This translates into a superpower where you can envision options for what could be where other people may only see limits. Follow? Or maybe you grew up in foster care, where you develop these high levels of self-sufficiency and determination and grit. Superpowers that enable you to take a Thor-like hammer to any challenges that try and block your way. Perhaps you're like my godchildren, who were blessed with private school experiences and have lived and traveled globally and speak multiple languages, which has afforded them a window into many different cultures, giving them the unique superpower to understand diverse perspectives. Each of these superpowers, limitless vision, grit and determination, a broad worldview, when brought together, make us something more. They help us become an even more powerful avenging force. Indeed, these are the type of superpowers that will enable us to outthink, outmaneuver, and outfight any adversary. Now, keep in mind that when we do bring together our extraordinary powers, we must do so with the mindset that we can only succeed against the enemy when everyone knows that they and their superpowers are a valued part of the team, that there is a shared sense of belongingness among us. This same idea plays out in a scene from another Marvel movie, Avengers Endgame. I told you I got hooked. This time, even more superheroes are added to the mix. And one of them, Captain Marvel, is just down for the fight. And she decides that she's going to go and strike out against the enemy all on her own. But before she can, she gets name-checked by one of the other Avengers, War Machine, also known as Rhodey. Now, all of the superheroes are gathered together in a room, and he calls her out. He says, "Hey, new girl, everyone here is about that superhero life." In other words, even though we all have different powers, we all belong to the same superhero world. He then emphatically tells her, "We work as a team here. This is all of our fight. I mean, we value your talent and we need you on this team. We have to do this thing together." So think of it this way. We are all one body, one team, one command, one fleet, one force. We are one body with many different parts, each with an important purpose and an invaluable contribution. What this means is that in order to win our wars, we must be inclusive of all of our parts, of all of our team's collective talents, of all of our combined experiences, of all of our many worlds. It should be quite evident then that inclusion is a war-fighting imperative. We must leverage the something more that comes from uniting the diversity of the people in our forces. Because here's the deal, and to paraphrase from a statement from the Marvel world, the threats that we face are too large for any one hero to handle. Individual talent can't win wars. Inclusive teams can, and they will. So let me end with this. A few months ago, Admiral Paparo, Commander Pac Fleet, did an interview on 60 Minutes, the news program. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you do so. That conversation was all about our most pressing threat. You know this threat. Our threat has developed weapon systems to attack our assets. Our threat has said that conflict and confrontation may be inevitable. After watching the entirety of that interview multiple times, I walked away with certainty of this knowledge. This fight is real. This fight is real. And only you possess the superpowers to ensure defeat. The United States Navy and all of its wonderful communities has assembled an extraordinary group of individuals, a community of remarkable people from multiple worlds with unique powers, all connected to be something more, working together to fight the battles that only you can win. This is your fight. Use your inclusive superpowers for good. Thank you.